and then I
Hello, welcome to Brown Dog Gadgets Live. I'm Amanda, the Education Outreach Coordinator here at Brown Dog Gadgets. Behind the camera, I've got Pete.
Pressing the buttons.
Yeah. In the chat, I've got Mike, already throwing some dad jokes out there.
It's like, ooh,
Nice. I like it. True Josh form right there.
Maybe Mike will tell us why it's called a potentiometer.
Oh, I don't have that answer.
Yeah, right.
You knew I didn't.
I don't even have it.
Before we jump into our MicroBit University with potentiometers, if you have not followed us on our social media platforms, please do so. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, and YouTube. Mike's already ready. Oh, no. I thought you had an answer, Mike.
He might be getting a delayed broadcast of, 30 seconds. So
That's true.
Who knows?
Yep. Also, if you have all the projects that you see here today and the guides are on browndoggadgets.com. If you have any questions, like what are you doing? What is this? Ask us. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a really good dad joke like Mike, feel free to throw that in the comments as well. And then if you have any questions afterwards, you can always email us at browndoggadgets.com.
Okay.
So many fun things to put on there.
Right.
All right, let's switch to the overhead cam.
Oh, hey, it works.
All right,
Right.
got to show them off.
Oh, yeah.
Regular microbit size,
Yeah.
large 3D printed microbit that
It's true.
has working buttons.
Clicky, kind of.
And then
Jumbo.
The enormous.
Huge, giant.
jumbo,
Gigante. Microbit.
ridiculously
El Gigante.
large microbit. 3D printed, I might add.
Sure.
All right, had to show those off. Okay.
True.
And check out this nice holder for microbits
Right?
that
And
Pete printed.
They snap in.
Yeah, so you just kind of wiggle them out.
Yeah.
This is how Pete keeps me organized for our project. Now, quick side note, normally when we're connecting a crazy circuits part, we have two pathways. We have one coming from ground, leading into the piece, and then we have one coming out of the crazy circuits part leading to whatever pin that we're using.
Yeah.
Pete, there's 3 pathways today.
Yeah. I think Mike is talking about our giant microbit.
I know. He
3.
is jealous of that. I think he's working on something though.
Nice. Yes, we have 3. So typically, if we're working with a simple input or output, I'm over here.
There he is.
A button, simple input. We just need a connection between a pin and ground. Pressing that button shorts that connection. For an LED, again, you've got the pin providing power output to the LED, and then ground is completing the circuit. Those are easy. Potentiometer is a little different. So what it does is the current flows through from the 3 volt over to ground. It flows through the potentiometer, and then that sort of middle connection, which goes to pin 0, that's an input to the microbit. I guess you could say output from the potentiometer. But basically, as you turn that, it's changing the resistance. And so what we're measuring on pin 0 is that resistance.
Oh, interesting.
So basically the voltage, resistance voltage, whatever, is changing as you turn that little knob. And we don't really use resistors with the stuff we've been doing so far, but a resistor, lowers the amount of current to a circuit. So this is sort of sometimes called a variable resistor, but potentiometer is the thing we call it.
Awesome. All right, let's check out our first project. So the first one we have is the potentiometer number. All right. So right now it's scrolling a number.
It is scrolling, yeah.
And it looks like I just went up.
Go all the way left. Okay, so 0.
All the way left?
So yeah, because we're reading the input on that pin, it's going to go from 0 to 1023. And it may not go all the way up. You may not see that value just because of extra resistance in the circuit, basically, due to maker tape. But you're going to go, it can read, 1024 values. So 0 to 1023 is what that pin can read. So as you turn that knob, it's going to show you that value. We'll show you the code for that, of course, once I find which button to press.
And the lowest I got was
Oh,
397.
nope.
Whoa, so many Pete's.
Two of me. There we are. I'm over here now. Okay. And what was the lowest you got?
397.
Oh, you should be able to get 0 if you go all the way anti-clockwise. It might take a second to kind of, because it has to scroll that number.
Oh,
yeah.
There's my 0.
So that, because it can only display, 1 digit at a time. It's got to scroll that, so it takes a little bit to catch up.
I thought I got all the way around. I did not. That was the problem.
There you go.
It's a tight turn. It's not loose, which is helpful for things like this, but I definitely thought it was
and
at the end.
Most potentiometers are larger, but we want one crazy circuit size, so that's a tiny one. And there is, if you kind of tilt it so it's more of a top view, you'll see there's like a slot in there. Sometimes
it's like a little arrow.
Sometimes you have to use a little screwdriver to adjust those, if they're on a PCB or something. And sometimes they're even smaller than that. And they're really just meant for adjusting with a little screwdriver rather than grabbing with your hand and spinning.
Yeah, it is. It's a tight little turn.
Yeah. So let's see. Let's look at potentiometer number. This code, you're going to be blown away by.
Oh, it's large.
Look at that code. Yeah, I know, right? LED enable, and then we're just going to show the number, and we're not even going to use a variable. We're just going to drop that analog read pin right in there. So basically, that's what you saw. And yeah, it's looping as fast as it can, but because it's using that show number, it's only going to go as fast as it can to scroll that number. So it's not going to go too quick. If you had this on some other display that could go faster, those numbers would change very quickly. Like a
7-segment display.
And we'll get to that at some point.
Yeah. Awesome. So that is the very cumbersome potentiometer.
Dead simple,
number.
Just to kind of get you into the idea of it.
Awesome. Next up, we've got potentiometer map number.
We do.
All right.
Slightly more complex this time.
So for this one, I told you it's tight.
Is it moving okay?
There we go.
All right.
So this one just has single digits.
Yes. So
we can actually see it, and it's not scrolling.
Right. That's why I did that.
Yeah.
I think we talked about the map function before, didn't we?
I don't know if we did.
Maybe we didn't.
Because when I saw that, I was like, I don't think I remember.
See what Mike has to say. Some research. Oh yeah, a voltage divider, kind of like yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I forget to do all the brush up on every correct technical sort of explanation for this stuff because I've just been doing it for so long. It's like, well, this does this. I don't know. I care more about making fun things and learning point measurement. Yeah. And Mike's just looking it up for us. I think he probably doesn't even know.
I love it.
Thanks, Mike. We appreciate that.
Yep.
So let's talk about the map function. So this big sort of, let me pull this over here. This giant block looks like a lot, but it's really fairly simple. So once again, we've got our analog read. So we're reading the input on that pin, and we're setting it to a variable called pot value. But what we're doing is we know that the input is going to be between 0 and 1023 because that's the input that pin can read, basically, the values it can do. What we're going to do is map that scale onto a smaller scale of 0 to 9. So anywhere from 0 to 100 or whatever is going to be 0, if you know what I mean. If you turned it about halfway, it would be about 512 value coming in, and that would bring about 4 or 5, right? So, and I think, do you have it about halfway right now?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little past half. If you put it halfway, pointing upwards.
Upwards is halfway?
Yeah, it should be. Yeah,
there you go.
About 4. Yeah, it probably turns about 300, maybe 290 or 300, I think. Probably about the same. Turn it once. Turn it all the way to the left. See how far it goes.
So, let's see.
Not
So
quite, yeah, like not quite down.
It's down here.
Like on a clock, it would be like 7 o'clock to probably 5 o'clock, so like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
almost
about right.
like a 270 servo or whatever. So that's common. Yeah.
Awesome. And then it's rounding the number.
Yes, because if I didn't do that, it will
Show a decimal?
There's two kinds of numbers. Well, there's more than two kinds of numbers, but the numbers we deal with are typically int or integers and float or floating point numbers. Floating point numbers have a decimal.
Mm-hmm.
So without that round in there, you would get some floating point number. So instead of 9, you'd get like 9.375, whatever. And it would scroll.
It would still scroll.
We don't want that scrolling.
Got it.
So yeah, the rounding takes care of that.
Nice.
So we want our whole number value, or integer as I call them.
Perfect.
So yeah, again, the map thing shouldn't throw you too much. And the fun thing about map is you can actually, it doesn't have to go from 0 to 9 here. It could go from 9 to 0.
Okay.
Which would reverse,
right.
the way you turn it. It could go from 10 to 20.
Mm-hmm.
It can go from any number, basically. It's just going to take that first bit and map it onto a scale of, that second part.
Right.
That makes sense, right?
Awesome. It does.
Cool.
Absolutely.
All right.
I think Mike had a
more to
comment.
say.
It's only
Let's
ever
see.
Mike.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're telling me, Mike. I know, right? I was writing some Python today, and I needed floating point numbers, but it only was showing integers. So I actually was like, I look up like how to display floating or whatever. It was for some plotting graph thing I was doing, but I had to do formatting, which if you're familiar with sprintf, how that works. I don't have to get into that right now. We'll leave that alone. I don't think we get into sprintf or printf at all with the MicroBit. Maybe we will.
I have no idea. All right, the next one we've got is our potentiometer pixel move.
Oh yeah, the old pixel mover. That's
Yeah.
a good one. Okay, so you got that going, and it's kind of blinky as it's moving across, right?
Yep.
We'll get into that. Sometimes wow, I have not seen that, Mike. I'm sorry you've had to deal with that in your lifetime, but that's why you round things, right?
Mm-hmm.
It works, or you convert it to a string and truncate it. I don't know. All right, so this code. Pretty similar up here. It's all the same. We just go from 0 to 4 though, and we do that because that's 5 positions, and we have 5 positions on the LED matrix. Mm-hmm. So this time we're actually going to take that pot value, instead of displaying it, we're going to use it for our plot. So we're going to plot, our x is going to be whatever that value is from the potentiometer, so anything from 0 to 4. So that's going to determine where, which pixel lights up on there. And then we're going to pause. We're going to light up that pixel and just pause a millisecond and then clear the screen. So it's going to keep looping and doing that. If we took out this clear screen, they would just light up. So as you turned the dial, they'd all eventually light up and none of them would turn off. And it would be not moving. It would be just filling them in.
Right.
So, and you're kind of like, well, this is terrible. Look at that blinking. I don't like that. That's okay. We're gonna deal with that in the next one. So
next one.
You gotta do bad to do good.
There you go.
All in the learning.
Doing the basic and figuring out how to expand
make it
upon
better.
it. A better iteration.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's what it
absolutely.
is.
Next one we've got pixel smooth.
Pixel smooth. Instead of move, it's smooth.
Whoa.
So good with words.
So good.
Look at that one. Now that one moves nice.
That is nice.
So a bit more code here, but not terrible, I hope. So over in our start, the first thing we do is LED on. We're creating a variable called previous pot value, previous potentiometer value, pot value. We're setting it to -1. A lot of times you'll set a variable to 0. I set it just, Mike's comment on our previous code there. I set it to -1 just to make sure it wouldn't be 0, because 0 is a value we might see coming in from the potentiometer. So I'm
Right.
like, I want to make sure that is something that isn't the same as a value we get coming in, at least on the first time around. So, whoops, a little more here. So we did add the round in here just to make sure we get an integer rather than a floating point number. And that didn't matter, I think, with the plot maybe, I don't know. But what we're doing this time is we're going to first clear the screen, and then we're going to plot our pixel, turn on our LED. But we're not going to do that unless the value from the potentiometer is different than our previous pot value. So on the first time around, the pot value is going to be anything from 0 to 4, and we know the previous is going to be -1. So on that first iteration, they're not going to match. It's going to clear the screen. It's going to plot that value. And then it's going to set the previous one to the current one. So it sets them the same. So then if you don't touch that, if you're not spinning that, it's going to keep looping around, and it's never going to do this if statement until you turn the little dial there. And then it compares these and sees, oh, they're different. So when they're different, again, I'm going to clear the screen, I'm going to plot that new pixel, and then I'm going to set that value to the old one. This is kind of I like this because I think when I first learned about this whole set a value, keep track of it, and see if it changed. I mean, I've used this a million times in code since I first learned it, and it's years and years ago. But it's extremely handy because I think when you think about code, especially when you're learning it, you forget about things like when you read through this, you forget that it's going to loop this as fast as it can, just over and over forever. So, as we saw with our blinking one, if you just read that code and look at it, you go, oh, it's going to do this and this. And you forget that it's doing it as fast as it can, so things are going to blink. It's not just going to sit there until you change the thing. It's going to do it over and over again, even when you don't want it to.
Yep.
So this is a way to sort of control that flow and saying like, hey, we don't need to update things unless something has changed. So that works pretty well.
It was being a little glitchy on me earlier, so I was wondering if I could get it to do it again.
Oh, by just moving it around?
It seemed like it, but it's not now?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't believe you, basically.
Okay. You can watch the video tomorrow.
I guess I could. Yeah, I could watch it tomorrow. I got nothing else going on. Yeah, work on the next chapter. But
yeah, there you go. And then the last guide in chapter 11 for our potentiometer is line smooth.
Right. And this is one of those classic, let's just build on what we already saw. So now you're getting, instead of a single picture, you're getting a whole line moving back and forth.
Beautiful.
Right. So really the code's practically the same. The only thing we changed there is right here we've added a for loop, and we said, so before we just said plot x and we had y set to 0 just to do that top row. We could have row 2 or whatever. So this time we're saying for index from 0 to 4, and then we're plotting the y with the index. So that value, every time it plots, it's going to loop through here and plot it on 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that whole line down. So, and that's a simple way. You could certainly say plot x, pot value y, 0, and then put 4 more of these blocks, and at 1, 2, 3, 4. But that's more code, and if you don't need that code and can do it in a little loop that makes sense to you, cool. And I will totally admit that sometimes I do just copy a line like multiple times and change one variable. Depends what I'm in the mood for and sort of the readability I want. But again, we're here to learn things, so we're showing you how you can add a little loop here and plot using that loop value. So.
Awesome. So those are the 5 guides for chapter 11, which is potentiometer.
And this is the first analog thing that I guess we've used. I'm not going to count LEDs, which they're not really analog, but we can simulate an an analog output using PWM, pulse width modulation. But yeah, so we're using an analog pin to read a value. So we're not reading an on-off, a 1 or a 0, a high or a low, but we're reading that scale of 0 to 1023. And if Mike can check me on this, but I believe the MicroBit being an 8-bit controller is why that number goes from 0 to 1023. With other controllers that maybe, I think 12-bit goes like 0 to 4096 or something. So you can get sort of more, it's not like you get more resolution, it's still a scale, but you can get finer grain sort of resolution, as it were. Yeah, sometimes that's useful.
Gotcha.
For the stuff we're doing, probably isn't.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Awesome. So that's chapter 11. We are moving on to chapter 12 next week, right?
Yes, we are.
What is chapter 12, Pete?
So I'm thinking, actually, we will do the potentiometer with an LED.
Perfect.
So we have a few. So it's because, controlling the built-in LED matrix is one thing. Let's add another crazy circuits part and see how we can control that in a few different ways. And we'll have some different code for that as well.
Awesome. So that will be next Thursday. Next Tuesday, we'll look at some Juneteenth cards that we've got. Yeah. And next Wednesday, we're going to be building the knife switch out of cardboard.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
And then we go on hiatus for.
And then we go on a 2-week break because we've got our Pathfinder session that's going to take up a lot of our time.
Yeah. And what you can do during that break is watch all the old videos.
So true.
There's so many.
There are so many.
So many. Yeah, 3 per week, and we've been doing this for a long time.
And we were doing 2 per week in the beginning, and I want to say the beginning was September or October. We did Halloween projects. I think it was September.
Okay.
Maybe August.
And we've done 11 weeks of MicroBit University so far.
Right.
So, yeah.
With some weeks off in there.
Yeah, well, 11 weeks of it plus other stuff.
Yep.
Right, and we have plenty more to come. We're probably not even halfway through.
Yeah, there's so much that we can do. And once we even get through all the different components, then we've talked about combining them.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like you're talking about for next week, using an LED and the potentiometer together.
Yeah, and basically we want to show you combining parts, and then I don't know at what point how many parts we'll combine into one and how complex we'll make things, but we might go back to and add more examples to some of the existing lessons if we think of new stuff as well. So yeah, cool.
Awesome. That is all we've got for you today. As usual, if you have not followed us on our social media platforms, please do so. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, and YouTube. Also, the guides for the projects that you saw today and all of our other projects and templates can be found at browndoggadgets.com. And then if you do have any questions, feel free to email us at help@browndoggadgets.com. We hope we'll see you next week. Have a great weekend.
Thanks for watching. Please visit browndoggadgets.com for parts, projects, and curriculum. Follow us on social media @browndoggadgets. We'll see you next time.